evening, this is your night before news video for your final further maths paper tomorrow morning. So, what came up in paper 1? I've had a look through the paper and I've just made a list of the topic that each question was on. You can see there was a wide range of topics that came up, including a lot of the further maths only content. So ranging from a very nice start to the paper with standard form to some much trickier questions at the end with the solving trigonometric equation. However, you needed to use the fact that sine over cos equal tan, so it brought in some of your trig identities as well. What further maths content was assessed in paper 1? So we had dividing of polynomials, we had factor theorem, we had limiting value of sequences, and there was, some differentiation in there. We had to use the power rule to differentiate. Specifically here, gradients of stationary points, so where the gradient was 0. Determining the nature of stationary points using your second derivative. So what's going to come up tomorrow then in your paper 2? We do know that seen topics may come up again and probably will come up again because there's 2 papers and the pool of content to choose from, I think, lends itself to there being some repeated topics. So we can only make a guess, so this is not, a guarantee, it's just a best guess of topic that hasn't come up yet that we might see tomorrow, and also then some topics that we may see again or we might just see some more of. So domain and range of functions hasn't really come up yet, so that's something that's possible tomorrow. Linking that, I think, to piecewise functions. You did have a piecewise function in paper 1 and you had to sort of figure out some coordinates from that and then use that to find the equation of the quadratic, but there's many other ways they can ask you piecewise functions questions. You could be plotting them, you could be writing down what those equations are. Limiting value of sequences has come up, but I've just sort of included that more to say that there might be some more sequences questions, so maybe finding out what the term number is or solving to find a value within a sequence. Increasing and decreasing functions, so the recognition that would mean that you need to differentiate your function first, and then depending on what the question says, increasing functions have gradient functions, so first derivatives that are greater than 0, and decreasing functions have gradients that are less than 0. Equations of normals, and in fact also equations of tangents. So remembering that you would find the equation of a normal or a tangent starting off the same way by differentiating your curve to work out your gradient of your tangent, and then it's just a straight line. So subbing in a coordinate with the gradient into y sum x plus c, and if it was a normal and not a tangent, just remembering that the tangent is perpendicular to the normal, and therefore we'd need the perpendicular gradient to the tangent. Applied differentiation, so think of those multi-part questions where there might be a cube or a cuboid or some sort of shape, and you're asked to prove that the volume, for example, is a specific equation algebraically, and there might be a question about surface area, and then part C will say something like using calculus or using differentiation, or just find as the volume, or find the maximum volume as x varies, or find the minimum surface area as x varies. That's telling you to differentiate. Okay, maximum minimums are stationary points, so set your gradient that you get when you differentiate equal to 0, and you can find that value of x that you're looking for. Finding the second derivative, so make sure that you know what the notation for that looks like. So differentiating once and then differentiating for a second time. Equation of circles not centred at the origin, because there was a question where you had to find the equation of a circle in paper 1, but it did turn out that the centre was the origin. So centres of circles not at the origin, I think, is likely. Product rule for counting usually requires a calculator. I would suggest that that is something you do revise, because we know that those can get quite tricky, trickier than product rule for counting questions that you see at GCSE. First class maths has a whole pack of those if you want to revise those tonight. Using trig identities, so you had just the one in paper 1 and it was sine over cos, so perhaps you'll have a proving trig identities question in this paper. Solving more trigonometric equations, you did have one, but I would imagine that there's probably more, because that is again a further maths only piece of content that I'm sure they'll be keen to test you on. More trigonometry, so I'm just thinking some further trig, maybe sine rule, cosine rule, area, where obviously you now have a calculator, so you're not restricted to exact trig values. More matrix multiplication. You actually had 2 matrices questions in paper 1, and they were both about transformations. So I'm just wondering maybe if you'll have a multiplying matrix question, not about transformations. Maybe it's you've got to work backwards to find some missing values. Sketching quadratics and features of quadratics. Exponential graphs, so you might have to be substituting in some coordinates to work out what the equation is. Perpendicular lines, we saw parallel lines in paper 1, so potentially some perpendicular lines. More circle theorems, they do like to try and find some really hard circle theorem questions to test you on. Simultaneous equations, but in 2 parts here, so I've got the 3 linear simultaneous equations, or perhaps non-linear simultaneous equations as well. Volume, so this could be a part of a 3D trigonometry problem perhaps, or it could be algebraic with like a cone or a hemisphere, but yeah, I reckon there might be something volume related in there tomorrow, just as a guess. Coordinate geometry, so here I was thinking about splitting a line into a ratio, or maybe as a couple of lines on a graph and finding out x-intercepts or the area of the triangle that they form, or something to do with coordinates. So what can you do this evening? Well, you still have access to this list of topics that I put together for you for further maths, with all of those links that take you directly to some practice packs on those topics with solutions, and also videos if you need some extra support. I think you should be thinking about whether you want to do specific topic revision, or if you want to do papers. So obviously on Arbor you have all of the previous lessons, you've got that revision list I've just shown you. But additionally, you've got Sparks Maths. So in independent learning, you have your further maths section. We have Corbett Maths with its own further maths section. And we have first class maths with its own further maths section. If you want to look at papers, I've given you various papers now. I've called it period 5 still, but obviously we've been in school during the day preparing for this exam. So you've got all of those papers, which I also put onto Arbor, and you've got some papers on first class maths as well if you go to exam papers and then level 2 further maths. Tomorrow morning the hub will be open early again, and I will be there from 7 if you wanted to get in super early and do some revision. Bring some questions that you haven't yet been able to answer from your revision this evening or yesterday or something like that, and then we'll do line up and then we'll do revision, and I have prepared a breakfast map for you as part of your revision. That's it from me. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing you in the morning, and we'll do our last GCSE maths paper.